Hi, this is Katie, and today on the My Senses, My Space podcast, I wanted to discuss reactions. And I had a lot of reactions as a child. It was very easy for me to be in a situation that did not feel right, and I would immediately react. It would be viewed as like emotional and moody and too much and over the top or whatever it was. But in that moment, I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't have the skills, and a lot of adults around me were lacking some skills in looking at this reaction in a different way. So what causes a reaction? Usually it's some kind of trigger. Usually it could be environmental. It could be an emotional conversation you're having with someone. It could be a set of circumstances that you suddenly feel doesn't work. It doesn't feel right. Something is off. You feel unsafe. And in that moment, you shift into the fight, flight, freeze, or even fawn. So within a reaction, it can be seen almost like a match going off. It's just being lit. It's just like instant. It's like, okay, it wasn't lit and now it's on fire. And that reaction can happen so quickly, it catches almost everyone off guard. It can, especially the person having the reaction, it can definitely throw them off guard as well. But the key that I've learned, especially with learning how to support my son through his reactions, because in autism, it's very much, here's a trigger, here's a react, I'm unsafe. I feel unsafe. There's something that makes me feel unsafe is what's like going off in his brain. So going to occupational therapy and really figuring out that the key to this is stretching out a reaction. How do we take that reaction and stretch it out and kind of observe it in its steps? So it can be, first somewhat like, I'm just thinking in his case, someone took a toy from him. All of a sudden, okay, not good. Alarm bells going off. The expectations that he was going to play with that toy for the next hour are gone. Highly upset. The first thing that other adults can do in that situation is saying, whoa, that was a surprise. That was such a surprise. Like, what happened? And so, even as adults, we can do the same thing of like taking a look at a situation and stepping back into an objective view and going, okay, what actually just happened? Before I react to anything, what just happened? Maybe it was that you're buying something and the wrong price rang up that was way more expensive, but actually maybe that is the true price and you miscalculated something. So the danger is this is going to cost a whole lot more than you thought. And we could have a reaction right in that moment saying, oh, no, we can't. There's no way I'm ever going to pay for that. There's no way. What is going on? Something's seriously wrong. I need to talk to your manager. What? I mean, you can still talk to a manager. But in that moment, can we pause? Can we take a pause and just objectively look at it and react in surprise? Like, I think there's this kind of social construct of like, we can't react with surprise. We have to react with an immediate answer to something. Like try this out. When something's not going right in your life, right in that moment, and especially if someone else is there, can you say like, I am totally surprised by this. This is very unexpected. I was thinking this, and that's not what's happening here. What's going on? Like, what is really, and what it's coming down to is what is the actual trigger? What was that one thing that turned an expectation? So, and even allowing for that pause to stretch this out and to allow for that pause gives us room to process emotionally. So not only are we looking at the facts of like objectively, okay, what is going on here? A toy was taken or this rang up wrong. That is the fact. You brought something up to the register, it rung up wrong, or you're buying something online. That's a surprise. And you can say even to yourself in the moment, well, that's a surprise. I didn't realize that that's what was going on. And that gives us a moment to process, well, maybe we didn't do our calculations correctly. Maybe there is a bug in the website or the checkout or something. Maybe something is just going wrong instead of immediately saying, oh, it's your fault, right? So we're getting curious. We're kind of going, okay, what could be causing this problem? And again, it's like allowing everyone grace. It's allowing there to be a mistake to be found and not put blame on somebody. Or it could be that what you thought just wasn't true. And that's okay. That's not somebody else's fault. And you are now having new information delivered to you. And instead of going, okay, I'll just buy the expensive thing and rushing out of there, you can go, oh, wow, that rang up totally wrong than what I thought. And I'm just not going to buy it at that price. You don't need to go into any justification of like what your financial situation is or anything like that. You can be very disappointed in the moment. You can be like, I had this whole plan of buying this thing for a loved one for their birthday. And by not being able to do that, that throws off a whole big plan. And you kind of have to go back to square one to figure out what that new plan will be. But if we pause and allow this kind of like emotional landscape to kind of emerge and have a place to kind of be safe within ourselves, to allow ourselves to be disappointed in that moment, to recognize that there are things that pop up in our life that just don't go our way. There are times when the calculations we've made are totally wrong. And I have survived so many calculations that are wrong, especially when I get my numbers mixed up all the time. It'll be like a total surprise that two numbers were totally reversed and it's no longer in our budget. Or we missed out on a sale because I got distracted and I was like, oh shoot, I could have done that last week. I can't this week. It happens, right? And we need to allow ourselves the room to be compassionate to ourselves and go, okay, that happened. It's okay. We can come up with a new plan. Maybe there are some ways. Maybe there is a way to figure out like going to a different place to buy something, or like in the case of my son, like the toy was taken away, but that doesn't mean like that's the end of it. Like, can we approach having a conversation with the person who took the toy? Hey, could I use that for 5 more minutes and then you can play with it? Now, this is very, very hard, especially for young children and for children who ADHD is autism on the spectrum of any kind, because it's very hard for them to come up with that communication there in the moment. So it took a lot of practicing and a lot of still practicing, right? But the key part of it is like, how do we stretch this out? How do we create a safe space to notice what's going on, to have our emotions about it, to say how we feel about it, like I'm really disappointed, but go, you know what? I can survive this. I can move on and I can create a new plan and new expectations out of it. And I think that can be a beautiful thing. So let me know what kind of reactions you've had that are like this, that maybe you wish you could have stretched out a little further. Because in that moment, it was like an instant reaction that you're like, I don't feel good about how that went. And often we'll have that kind of replay in our minds over and over. And part of it you could try this next time, be kind of processed in a way if we just draw this out, be transparent with the person who you're having a conversation with or exchange with, and just explaining how you feel in the moment. See what can happen. Anyway, I find it interesting. I hope it does for you too. So thank you for joining me on the My Senses, My Space podcast.